And people themselves are on the move as well. So I'm pleased to say we've just caught up with our next guests as well. It's a new study that we want to tell you about, partly conducted in Blackburn. It reveals the Generation Z or Generation Z, depending which way you want to say it, British Muslims are faith-driven, ambitious and eager to contribute to society, yet face systematic barriers both inside and outside of their communities. It captures the hopes, the frustrations, the leadership potential of young Muslims determined to shape Britain's future, but tired of being spoken for. Let's have a word or two with a couple of people. Sajia Sadid is head of the strategy and development at Muslim Scout Fellowship, and also I've got with me too Sophia, who's deputy head of programmes. Will come first of all and say good morning to both of you. Thank you so much indeed for being with us. Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. Firstly, Sadia, just explain to us, because I know you spoke at the launch of this, just to explain to people. So what is your upsum of it all, and how do you believe this will help, this report?
Muslim Scout Fellowship are one of the largest Muslim youth development organisations in the UK. We work on a national remit. And so we've got 15,000 young people who are currently members and actively every single week taking part in the Scout programme. And so we were interviewed by the authors of the report to get an understanding of how we operate, what we found working with young people over the last 20 years. And so we've contributed towards the report. And at the parliamentary report, obviously, I was part of the panel and able to kind of discuss some of the challenges as well as the opportunities facing, that our young people are experiencing and how we can then support them. And I guess in terms of the question that's being posed in terms of are they being invited to take part in community work, etc. What we've experienced over the last 20 years is absolutely they are very, very active. They're very involved in the community. They're very much contributing positively, even from a very young age. That's what the Scout programme actually really helps facilitate. However, it's not being showcased enough. It's not being platformed enough. It's being celebrated enough. And because of that, I think it can lead to young people feeling like no matter how hard they try and how much they are trying to give back positively, the only time they're ever mentioned in any kind of mainstream media, in any kind of way, every time they're spoken about, it's always in a negative way as a challenge that needs to be solved, etc. So I think that then leads to more and more young people thinking, well, why should we try so hard if it's not going to be recognised?
Sophie, is that your experience?
Yeah, so I would say, obviously currently sitting on the leadership of the Muslim Scout Fellowship, I've had the privilege also of having grown up as a scout. So I started as a beaver, went to Cubs, Scouts and Explorers, then became a leader. And I felt that I was really empowered in that space in ways that I wasn't necessarily being empowered out of it. So as Sadia mentioned, there were a lot of systemic injustices and barriers that I would see and experience kind of sometimes as a young person, where I felt sometimes my peers were getting certain opportunities that I wasn't being offered, or I was being kind of bullied or things for certain religious markers like my hijab and things like that. But I felt like within the space of the Muslim Scout Fellowship and Muslim community in general, I had this safety net where I was being empowered to contribute to my community, and I was being empowered to have an input, to say things, to contribute, to voice my opinion, to kind of collaborate with others outside of Scouts and Muslim Scouts as well. And really it has contributed a lot to kind of my community service and my outlook on Britain in general, and my contribution to Britain in general.
I'm very sorry to hear you felt you were bullied, and just because of your appearance. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, and I think it's something that's common for a lot of Muslim women and men, unfortunately, and young boys and girls growing up in the country. And I don't think it necessarily is always malicious. I think sometimes it comes from people who have kind of heard a lot of media narratives growing up about Muslims, negative stereotypes that are just perpetuated in politics and media about Muslims and not necessarily challenged. And I also see this on a European scale as well. So through the work with the Muslim Scout Fellowship, I've also been able to connect with Muslim communities across Europe who are also, trying to face these systemic barriers, and they have exactly the same experiences of really horrible narratives about Muslims just going unchallenged, unchecked, and people building really negative narratives about Muslims.
Yeah.
And it's something you grow up with as a Muslim. And I'm only 23, but I think I've had to become so vigilant, and it's been something that has just been constant throughout my youth.
You see, as somebody who worked in the media, and I have worked in the media for maybe a day or two now, actually quite a lot of days or two, I'm horrified to hear that you believe the media, because you're embracing everybody here, aren't you, when you say the media, that you feel the media has contributed to this. Because I can only say for colleagues around me, and that is that we hope we're as positive as needs to be. You see integration, we talk about positivity all the time for the Muslim tradition. Where is this that's happening in the media, and why do you believe it's happening in the media, Sadia?
I mean, there is actually a whole centre for media monitoring that's been set up literally because of the prevalence of Islamophobic tropes that are being perpetuated and constantly highlighted in media. And they've done extensive research and studies that actually show the way in which Muslims are regularly stereotyped and showcased in media proves that statistically, like the data actually shows that they are genuinely more often than not spoken about in a very negative light, and that is literally why whenever something terrible happens, it's always the blame is cast straight onto Muslims. And on the flip side, we are also like the most charitable community in the UK. We do take part in a lot of charitable drives. We're very generous. That never gets celebrated or mentioned enough. And obviously there are great pockets like yourselves who, we're not condoning all of the mainstream media at all, but there are definitely very large bodies within the media who are sort of actively, constantly platforming negative stories about Muslims, and very rarely do they celebrate and look for or even adopt positive stories. I've been working in the community for over 20 years, very actively involved in the community, and every single time I've sent a press release out, I'm very, very cautious, like, how is it going to get taken? Is there going to be a negative spin put on this? So definitely it's a thing. And like last summer, you just had to look at the Southport riots and how that incident, that very, very tragic incident, literally led to so many Muslims up and down the whole country literally shutting themselves in their homes, even though we've been part of society for so many years, like decades, and we are literally British, and you can tell from our accents that we are very, very much born and bred British. But I know that I was telling my mum not to go out. Young people in our scout groups up and down the country were being told, okay, you know what, sessions we're not going to run this week because it's just not safe enough to run sessions. And that's such a shame that young people were being told, actually, your own society is not embracing you at this period, so it's better for you to stay at home. And I don't think people who are not from the community can really understand what that feels like, when an entire community feels like they actually need to keep themselves off the streets because there's this like real sentiment around you that is targeting you. And we had nothing to do with the Southport incident. So yeah, I mean, that's just one example of many.
Yes, but also, and I hope you would accept this point, also, one that did happen, and it did happen, but when that did happen, the community came out and said, not in my name. The community came out onto the streets, and it happened right the way across the country. I remember watching the coverage myself and cheering when you see people coming out and saying, we're not having this happen in our streets, and telling the various people in words that they understand to clear off, because we do not want thuggery on our streets. We do not want discrimination. And can I put another point to you as well? And I realise we're short on time because I know you've got to get off as well. But another point I wanted to put to you as well. You know, when you were talking just a little earlier about the way in which the Muslim contribution sometimes isn't actually acknowledged in the way that you would hope. I wonder sometimes also whether reporting has got to the point now where we just talk about integrated society. So, for instance, if I was covering an event that had taken place and and Muslims were contributing to it, but there were others as well, we'd just say a group of scouts did this, a group of scouts did that. We wouldn't single out the community that you would want us to single out. And I wonder whether sometimes it gets lost in what is really a good thing of people being integrated.
Yeah, I think just on that point, I would say, I think as a young person, it's really important to see yourself represented in different ways, and it's really important, especially when you see so many narratives on social media and so much horrible kind of vile kind of speech coming out on social media about your group, your religious group coming out on social media. You really need good, strong media headlines that are unapologetic, combating that. And if you see so much drivel about Muslim, you want to also see positive stuff saying Muslim. And I think that's where kind of the angst comes from, where we just constantly see our name associated, our community label associated with negative things and rarely ever with positive.
Yeah, and it's not just the newspapers as such. It's also like you just look to the movies, you look to the documentaries and the even the TV series. Often we're only ever described in two ways: either we are incredibly violent and extreme, or we are incredibly oppressed. And it's never anything in between. We don't have an identity beyond those two. And so, and I'm someone who grew up in the post like 9/11 era. And I know that, like, genuinely the sentiment from before and how I felt as a young British woman growing up, and I was like a teenager, I guess, in that period, and after, there's a huge shift. There's been a huge shift, and I think, I think it's a lived experience that I think only people from the community can truly speak about, especially when our identity, Muslimness is not something that is a bolt-on to our identity. Being Muslim is our entire identity. It's at the core of our identity, so it's not something that is being attacked on like the periphery of who we are. It's our entire being is being attacked every time that happens. So I really appreciate the report, because the report actually highlighted how many young Muslims are feeling, but at the same time how they are still so resilient and continue to try to find ways to make positive, meaningful contributions to society, because we genuinely do want to contribute positively. We want to be an active voice in the community. We want to make sure that we also have a valid contribution to make to the way in which society works with us. That's really the crux of it. Like with young people especially, how we can better support them and how we can help platform them so that they are actually truly being held up to be the people who then make changes in society. And we've seen great examples of that. I'm sat next to one right now. Sophia is, I think, a phenomenal example of someone who went through a youth provision that helped to empower her full identity and not just part of it. And therefore she's able to go out into the world embracing all of herself and go out and give positively. But if you have to shut yourself away to be able to do that, I don't think you're able to ever fully contribute to society. I think it's so important that we have these the support structures in place for all youth development organisations, for all people, not just obviously Muslims, but for all people, anyone who feels that they're part of a certain identity set. That needs to be fully celebrated and supported, so that then those young people, when they go out into communities, they bring in their whole self and the best of themselves.
Okay, listen, it's been great to speak to both of you. Thank you very much. We must keep in touch. I've thoroughly enjoyed your conversation with me. Thank you very much indeed, Sadia, and also Sophia as well. Come back soon, because there's so much to discuss and we'd love to do it. So hopefully you'll be back with us in the not too distant. Thank you very much indeed for speaking with us. All the best to you. Have a good day today. Thank you.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.